So your game for deepening a little more is going to be some mantras this time. Mantras are things that you repeat that help you to really entrain your mind and your person to grab on to a different reality, or to get this idea that you would like to embed in your person, like really to sink in. Or another way to think of them is just like reminders that you repeat, or things that you want to bring into reality. So it's almost just like repeating them to call them out and to call them into existence. So, typically because of that, mantras are used for positive things, or things that we don't reject, but in fact want. But this time, we're going to do a mantra in a different way. We're going to do an opposite mantra on something that, instead of something we want, something that we would typically reject in life, like a feeling, an experience that we typically reject. And the reason we're doing this, because it's like, why in the world would I want to like call that into existence? Well, no, in this case, we're repeatedly putting it in our mind, or putting it out there in order to reduce the resistance that we have to it. We're in this like frozen state of rejection to, feeling blamed or to feeling different. And it's like, I don't want it. I'm rejecting it. I'm frozen about it. But, to some degree, it's just a necessary, natural part of life. And therefore, reducing our resistance to it, kind of taking away the threat, saying it over and over and embracing it, open ourselves to it, and train it into our being too as an okay thing that we're not going to just like freeze in resistance to. Doesn't mean you have to want it, but you are just reducing that amount of rejection and resistance and making yourself more flexible and less resistant to life, because all the things are a part of life. I mean, in many of these cases, it's something that is just necessary. For example, being different or dissimilar. We generally reject that. We don't want to feel so unlike anybody else and so out on our own and so different and dissimilar. However, it's absolutely a part of life, or an absolute necessity in life to be dissimilar, because otherwise we wouldn't be our own person. We would be merged with some other being, or some other consciousness or something, so it's actually just necessary in life, but we resist it. And so often you will see that a lot of the things that we resist are just normal parts of life. And so then opening yourself up and reducing that resistance makes you less resistant to life, because life has more than just the good stuff in it. It has all the things in it. Plus, it does make you more skillful, less fearful. If you reduce your resistance to anything, you're more prepared to handle it, because you're less frozen. You're not just like, oh no, like digging your heels in. Instead, you're kind of dealing with it as it comes. Like, okay, I got this. Let's, think on my feet and problem solve. And you have that flexibility, that resilience, the things that you need. You're more equipped when you're less frozen and you're not in a state of just deep resistance. You're more capable to get creative, take it as it comes. You don't have that fear freezing you. You can navigate whatever situation you get way better. So hopefully you get why I'm having you do these mantras. Plus it's really interesting. It's a really interesting sensation to kind of like say these things that feel like awful, and just to let those feelings happen in your body for a second, and they pass because you're saying it repetitively like a mantra. So, and we're also going to do it for multiple days. I mean, I would certainly encourage you to, anytime that something comes up, especially when something comes up that you feel resistance to or that you don't like, and it's like, oh, I hate this. Well, do a mantra. Find your little things. And so we'll go into that too, because I think that's been cool for me, is sort of like finding all the things and all the things that I reject that are just necessary parts of life. Like we already mentioned, the different, right? So here's how the mantra will go. You will pick the thing that you are rejecting, and you're going to pick things that you're rejecting on both the negative spectrum and the positive spectrum, because believe it or not, there are plenty of things on the positive spectrum that you reject. They are the things that you believe are too good to be true. For example, like being totally adored. Do you think that's too good to be true? Well, then you're kind of rejecting it. And so you need to do this one. And on the negative spectrum, of course, like being totally different than everyone else. Usually we reject that idea. And so that would be one that we would do a mantra for. And how you're going to do the mantra is basically say, sorry, I needed a big breath. May I be adored. May I be adored. May I be fully adored. May I be adored so much. May I be adored. And that, again, at first, you might feel like, I have no problem saying that. That's not a big deal. I mean, yeah, I want to be adored, and then, but man, after the 10th time you say it, you might just break down in tears because there's like layers that you're getting at, layers of resistance or hurt that you're getting at, and you're just like saying it. When it's in the positive spectrum, it does sort of go that way, where it's like breaking down layers of resistance and your belief that it's too good to be true, and like really admitting or getting to the core of like, God, I do want that, When it's in the negative spectrum of stuff, it's a little different, but it's still a very interesting process. The first time you say it, like, may I be totally different from everyone else. May I be totally different from everyone else. May I be totally dissimilar. May I be totally different than anyone else. At first you might feel just like, oh, this is like making me nauseous. I don't want to say it. I am in such resistance to it. This is awful. Why would I do this? You might feel like you're cursing yourself, or something just so fearful and so resistant, because you don't want to wish that for yourself. You don't want to say, may I please, may I bring that, may I please be totally unlike anyone other. May I be totally dissimilar to others. But after a few times, when you start to break down that resistance, you release that clench and that disgust and that fear just kind of releases. And it's interesting. It's a sensation that you must just feel for yourself. And there will be a whole range of them. And that's an interesting part of this, is to just sit in some sensation and see if you can, and notice it and get more skilled at noticing it. Like, oh, well, so at first it was like this, and then it like shifted to this. And then, I arrived at this place where X, Y, or Z happened, and I just didn't give a crap anymore. At first it was so nauseating, and then I, got to a place where it was like scary, and then I started to cry, and then I started to think of something that happened when I was a kid, and then it wasn't even scary anymore. And then after that, I started to see how I kind of did want to be dissimilar and totally different from everyone else. I started to see, oh, that's pretty awesome. Like I'm okay to do that. In fact, I feel emboldened to like be totally dissimilar from everyone else. And I kind of see the necessity of that in life. And hopefully, that's kind of where we're getting, but it may not happen. It may not happen on the first 100 times you say this thing, and you might do this for days, and you might go back to the same one because being dissimilar to other people might keep coming up for you. And so then you do another round, and just do a little round of 10 or whatever is easy for you. Just repeat it for a minute until the feeling kind of shifts, until you feel something shift. Then you've kind of gotten somewhere with it, and you've had an effect with your mantra, and you've broken down some resistance to get to whatever layer is there waiting for you under that superficial sort of like outer shell resistance clench up that you're holding. And just, you might not get to the core immediately, but you might. But what we're really just trying to do is shift the feeling a little bit. break down that resistance, get past it and see what's there waiting for you, and then let it evolve. You know, the next day you try a different one. You might have an even more easy time breaking the resistance, or, you know, the different one might be so powerful, whatever, that you don't have an easier time. But then the next time you do that same word, you have a different revelation, or just, you will see. There'll be a different experience every time. But the ones that I am just tossing out for some examples, for some suggestions, because I know getting started with the ideas can sometimes be hard, are things like, may I be totally adored. That's in the positive realm. May I be, you know, seen and heard fully. May I be totally truthful. May I be my very best self. May I be powerful beyond measure, right? I mean, that one can get, you know, you're like, really? Am I ready? Is that okay? Don't I resist that? And you can kind of feel that you do resist that, you know, a little bit. There is a little bit of like, you know, because you think it's too good to be true. I'm not going to be powerful beyond measure. That's too good to be true. May I be madly in love. May I enjoy my life so much that I'm brought to tears by it every day. Is that too good to be true? Well, then you're resisting it, you know? So going through things like that. And then also going through the negative spectrum too. Like, may I be totally fooled. May I be blind. May I be enthralled or enslaved. May I be consumed, and may I be devoured by life. May my energy be totally consumed and used up by everybody else, you know? Or that was actually one that I first started with because it was a part of some work I was doing with Carolyn Elliott. So yeah, that one's an interesting one, because if you actually think about consumption, like, everybody gets consumed. I mean, you know, like, we eat animals or we eat plants. It's like life eats us. We get consumed and used up to the very last drop. And in a way, that's freaky. And it's like something we resist, because we don't want to be eaten up and like used up and spent and spit out by life and like be done in life. But at the same time, I started to get to a place where I could see it as like this extremely pleasureful joy. It's like, oh my God, yes, may I please be consumed by life. That's what I'm here to do. You know, it was like an honor to be used up and have value and be consumed and enjoyed by life. So anyway, that's totally a side note. It made me think of it because I was going through that one. But like, may I be rejected. May I be, like I said, dissimilar to others. May I be dishonest, you know, any of the things that you reject. You don't want them, you know, they're not hard to think of. I mean, they come up every day, all the time, but then say them over and over and over. And just, even if you never get to a point where you like get appreciation for it, like dishonest would be a really hard one for me. May I be dishonest? May I be dishonest? Or something like that. God, I mean, I don't know if I could ever get to a place of appreciation for that. However, I can break down my fear to it or my resistance to it so that I'm not just like, you know, instead I'm just more equipped to handle it. And it doesn't mean that I like want to start being dishonest, but it does mean that I'm not in this deep place of just clenched fear. So I'm maneuverable if anything happens. I'm actually, yeah, when I'm in a lesser state of fear, then I'm actually better able to keep my stance the way I actually want to and not be dishonest, you know. So anyway, theoretics aside on the hows, because I feel like I've already pitched why we're doing this and how it's got some magic in it, and I don't need to pitch it anymore because you just need to try it. But you need to see how it goes for you, feel into it, and see if you feel like there's any merit to it. I certainly did. That's why I'm sharing it. And do it for lots of days. Do it for any different feeling that comes up. Anytime something that you really detest or that disgusts you or that you're really rejecting and not wanting, things that are old pains in life. Like, may I be called intense and too much? May I be blamed for everything, because may I be the scapegoat? These are things that are old wounds, old pains that, okay, pull them out, repeat the mantra, see what happens, see if some shift in just the way that it feels and the tightness and the like, ugh, yuck that you have towards it, just moves a little. And it might move into a more hated, I might get way more hatred towards it, but just do it until something moves and feel how it goes. And at the very least, you're sort of calling out and calling attention to all the things that you reject, whether they're negative or the ones that you think are too good to be true that are positive. And that in and of itself kind of gives you a clearer view and owning the stuff that you reject. So see how you like it.